Good afternoon for everyone on the East Coast, and good morning to everyone on the West Coast. My name is Spencer. I'm with the Election Security Exchange, and we're going to have a fantastic webinar today, and thank you everyone for joining. A couple things real quick. Again, welcome to the Election Security Exchange. Purpose is really threefold. We're going to be giving you a quick brief on the purpose of the Election Security Exchange, a quick overview of the threat landscape, and facilitate a short conversation with some of our amazing partners that are on the call today. Just one note to help maintain the integrity of some of our conversations, we are asking that no AI transcripts be made of our webinar today. But with that being said, we also will be recording this webinar on our YouTube channel here in the near future. Finally, we will not be answering questions live, mostly just because of the amount of time that we have and some of the amazing speakers that we have. But we do encourage you to send any questions to info@securingelections.org. Again, that's info@securingelections.org. And I believe Mr. Mosier is going to be tossing that in the chat here momentarily. All right, to kick things off, I want to talk to you about the why. We recently launched the Election Security Exchange to serve as an educational and informational hub for our community of election officials. Andrea, who's going to be speaking here next, is our interim executive director. And you've talked about the necessity of this project. What is the specific gap in the election ecosystem that the Election Security Exchange was built to fill?
Thank you, Spencer. So the gap we saw was simple, but it was significant. Election officials needed a reliable, nonpartisan place to turn to for clear, practical election security support. Last year, many of us here on the webinar, we were already working alongside election officials to understand those needs, but the work was informal. The Election Security Exchange brings that expertise together in one steady home. So we are now a dedicated information sharing hub focused on cyber, physical, and operational security, with resources that translate best practices into usable tools for offices of every size. That ranges from guides and checklists to training modules and exercises, all shaped by a team with more than 300 years of combined experience in election administration, cybersecurity, policy, and resilience. Our goal is to give the election community timely, verified insights on emerging risks and to show up consistently at events, conferences, and trainings nationwide. Most importantly, we are here to provide practical, plain language, nonpartisan support that election officials can put to work immediately.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Andrea. So I'm going to turn over to Chris here for a second. And I think it's important, as Chris is out in the field, I know he's talking about this a lot, but also to differentiate what we are not here at the Election Security Exchange and some of the amazing work that we can do with not only our own team, but also with some of our partners who are on the call today. Chris, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Spencer. And so good to be here. And thanks for everybody for joining. It's a great question. So what are we not? I mean, we're not hands-on keyboard discovering classified intel, but we have a great network and are constantly looking at public information and making that accessible and actionable to election officials. And so, as Andrea mentioned, over 300 years of combined election security and election administration experience. So what we can do is take this confusing, sometimes overwhelming amount of information about cybersecurity and election security in general and bring it to election officials in a language that they can understand. And then so we're not also providing cybersecurity assessments to offices, but we can connect you with organizations that can. And I think just as importantly, we can develop resources, checklists, guides, and tools to help you with those assessments, right? And so in short, we want to be and can be and are the first stop, right? For everything election security. So think about it this way. I have an election security question. Have an election security need. I have an election security desire, right? Who do I call? You're going to call the Election Security Exchange, and we're going to be able to connect you with the organizations, our partners who can best help you if it's not us. Or if that doesn't exist in this world or landscape, then we can work with you and our partners to create that resource, checklist, guide, what have you.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Chris. So a lot of us have the same morning ritual as election officials. We go to the office, we grab our cup of coffee. One of the first things you do probably when you turn on your computer is maybe you check your email. You probably are looking at election line, trying to see the day's headlines. And you're really ready to get into work and dive into the day. So we have two other great former election officials with us, Mike Mosier and Ryan Macias. So I'm first going to kind of turn it over to Mike. Can you explain our concept of bite, snack, and meal philosophy and how this applies to our newsletter, how this applies to some of our checklists and some of our more in-depth guides? So over to you, Mike.
Great. Thanks, Spencer. And really just want to say hi to everybody. It's so excited to see you all here on our first webinar. And look forward to working with you all in this endeavor. But generally across the board, you already heard Angie and Chris talk to this a little bit, but we're really emphasizing plain language materials. We know that as election officials, many of us have been in your shoes, that you don't have a ton of time. You're working in a high stakes environment and you're being pulled in so many directions. And we're really carrying that strategy forward with us in developing the materials or pulling information together. Whether we're sharing it out in the newsletter, as Spencer mentioned, that you can sign up for, or developing new products if there's not something that we see in the space to support you all on the election security front. We're kind of bringing this concept of the bite, snack, and meal, which is really layering information in ways that you can kind of dig through it and pick through it to get what you're looking for. So for example, the bite is something very small piece of information that is very concise and to the point, and it might be something like a clear headline for you, whether that's in the newsletter or the product, or it might just be like a one-page product that we put together. It's easy and digestible, and it breaks down complex topics in easy to understand language. But then we have the snack and the meal, where we'd be offering either new products, or we'd be layering in a little more information that if you're looking for more details on particularly an incident potentially that's out there in the public realm, that you can get some more tidbits. And then certainly the meal is breaking down like a full dive into something, whether it's developing a checklist in response to something, or it's a whole new policy template that you can leverage. And that's the mentality that we're trying to carry through all of our products and communication, so that with the limited time that you have, you can get to the details that you really want to see and digest it. But if you're looking for something more in depth, we're going to help point you in that direction and say, here's a fuller guide for you to explore, and here's what you can expect to see out of it. And if you're ready to dive in, here's where you can find it. So that's what we're going to be doing to really help separate actionable information that's out there and cutting through all the noise that's out there so you can get to what you want to see.
So speaking of that, Mr. Mosier, I know that one of our big goals is really to have that plain language. So as a recovering cybersecurity professional, trying to make sure that we're always speaking in plain language. Can you kind of talk a little bit about how we're really trying to make this actionable for election officials and also very much in plain language that everyone can understand?
Absolutely. There's been some elements in the news lately, particularly in elections, where we continue to see, for example, bomb threats that are coming out there during an active election event. And, so we're not just going to take that information and kind of turn it around and share it with the audience. What we want to do is pull that together and kind of digest that in a timely manner and really in plain language, just kind of very fast describe what's going on and what we're seeing, but then have a supporting documentation that will come back. And we really want to uplift a lot of the partners that are in this space, because it's not just going to be products that we're putting together. We're really trying to be that hub that, Chris had mentioned, and bringing together all election security information. So if there's partners that already have great products out there for this particular example, like Committee for Safe and Secure Elections, they have a lot of great material on physical security, and particularly with managing bomb threats with law enforcement. And so we want to uplift those products and be able to put that together in that communication. So you can, in one sentence, know what's going on, and then breaking it down further with some more supporting details from verified sources, whether it's the media or other avenues, and then kind of put some meat to that and actually provide in-depth checklists to say, here are things that you can be doing right now, and here's where you can turn for more detailed information to be able to pull that into existing work plans or response plans, so that jurisdictions are ready to rock and roll before something like that might happen to them.
Perfect. Thank you very much for that deep dive into that, Mike. So one of our mission is not just about sending emails and making products, but also we want to be in the room. We want to be in the room with election officials, helping support election officials. Ryan is one of our boots on the ground. We kind of joke, where is he at? He's probably in a hotel somewhere, in the lobby somewhere. So can you kind of describe how we could go to an office to deliver doxing or a phishing briefing or training? And then how can we actually help an election office when it comes to that?
Yeah, thanks, Spencer. And as everyone else has said, it's my pleasure to be here in front of everybody on this webinar. But I do not like looking at myself on screen. I like being out with you all and engaging with you all. I am currently out at a state association meeting right now, engaging with hundreds of elections officials on election security and resilience. And so talking to them about the efforts that the Election Security Exchange is undertaking. But as importantly, or more importantly, is working with them to understand their needs, and working with that information to be able to assess what it is that they're talking about and help them prioritize. Elections officials today came to me and said, we're concerned about X, Y, and Z issues. What is it that we can do to help mitigate the risks of these items happening, both from a protective perspective, from a detective perspective, and a response measures. And so I think, Mike, Andrea, Chris, and Spencer were all just talking about the way that we can do that from documentation perspective. But as we all know, having documents is only as good as practicing them, as well as making sure that they're up to date and refined and accurate. And so helping elections officials develop some of those guides in workshop type forums, putting on trainings to raise their awareness, and doing it in, as I like to say, election speak and at election speed. And, really embedding the information that is of most risk to them. Sometimes that risk is not the same thing as of most concern. So helping them identify the difference between the concern and the risk, and then building that into some of the tabletop exercises that they are already developing, or helping develop it alongside them. And so the last thing that I'll say on this topic is, I know Tina is going to be coming in just a minute, but CSSE has been doing an absolutely amazing job getting out in front of elections officials and putting on tabletop exercises. We have been able to work with CSSE and work with them on, bringing some of that kind of cyber expertise into the fold, and working with the elections officials and CSSE to integrate some of those risks and concerns that elections officials are working on. But then also developing out some of those more technocratic tabletop exercises and kind of workshops that elections officials are looking for us to provide directly.
Perfect. Thank you, Ryan. So kind of want to switch gears here a little bit and kind of talk through, unfortunately, a scenario that election officials are well too familiar with these days, where polling places are being targeted with bomb threats, which is eliciting a law enforcement response, and election officials have to deal with it. So, Chris, can you kind of talk about how the election security exchange is going to work in concert with our partners to help elections officials prepare for this action? And I know Mr. Macias kind of already mentioned that a little bit, but if you could add on to that, that would be amazing.
Yeah, I mean, Ryan, and we've been talking about the whole time, and I hope, it's really resonating with everybody. When we think of the election security exchange, you have a lot of people with 300 plus years experience. We have a great network of resources, folks that we can tap into. When you think about the election security exchange, I think I've been thinking about it like humility. We have no pride of authorship. We are here to uplift the election support community to help election officials. So again, we're looking, I mean, Ryan just highlighted it. The Committee for Safe and Secure Elections and Tina and the team over there have been doing just amazing work in the physical security space. And so there will be opportunities where there will be times when people come to us and ask us about physical security, and we're going to say, okay, hey, CSSE is doing something great in that area, and we can work with them. Maybe we can come to them and say, hey, there's an issue that we've been made aware of, like, bomb threats is something that's already happened, but maybe a new emerging issue in the next few months, and we can work with CSSE to build out these bite-sized checklists using their expert analysis, and we can co-brand and work together to get that out to the election officials. And I think that that's the real unique thing that Election Security Exchange has been built to do, is leveraging all of the great work that's out there and making it available to the wider and broader election community. It's very exciting.
It is actually very exciting how we can continue to support the election security community. And Mike and Ryan, I want to toss a couple quick questions over to you. So, Mike, if you could answer this first, how does the snack bite meal model deliver what election officials need during the middle of an election day when, let's say, again, a bomb threat is starting to move across the country? Can you kind of describe that really quick, Mike?
So basically, we will, take that information and digest it, and then, break that down, source the information and verify it. And then we'll, start chunking that out into manageable information so that you have a great set of information, that kind of breaks down the background of what it was, and then it kind of sorts through it, so that you can kind of get the high level details and then pull together some of the meat and add, direct checklists to what are some immediate next steps that you should consider taking, and then maybe some longer tails that you can work into your plan down the line. But again, we're really emphasizing on the actionable information that you can take right away. But then there's other resources to kind of get more comprehensive down the line to kind of create a more holistic plan.
So speaking of that, Ryan, could you kind of talk about how Emil might kind of come to this when it comes to responding to a bomb threat, whether it's a tabletop exercise or checklist or things like that? Could you talk through that really, really quick for us?
Yeah, so first and foremost is, there's multiple different ways. It could be a summarizing of a very technical document that may come out, whether that be from the likes of, the FBI or, law enforcement, that kind of really gets into the weeds. And taking some of that data and information and putting it into a kind of long form guidance document. But then it is also helping to develop out workshops where we can actually work with individuals on building those resilience plans in-house, as well as putting it into tabletop exercises. Again, I know we have highlighted in multiple cases here, working with CSSE, who is already focusing in on these bomb threats and working with law enforcement to ensure that we are leveraging what they are already doing and building with them to, whether it be through co-branded documents or working with them, as I was talking about, through tabletop exercises and workshops for that specific on bomb threats, but more so on areas that, kind of fall within the cyber realm and more of kind of the information security area, is developing those out ourselves and utilizing our 300 years of experience being kind of in the cyber realm and really honing in on those items with elections officials directly.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Ryan. So Andrew, over to you real quick. So before we switch over to our amazing partners who are on the call, looking toward the rest of 2026, what is your North Star as our interim executive director for the Election Security Exchange? When we look back in December of this year, how do you define success and what does that look like to you?
It's a great question. Thank you, Spencer. So for me, the North Star is simple. By the end of 2026, election officials should feel more equipped, more supported, and less alone when it comes to election security work. Everything the exchange produces or references, whether it's a practical product, a training, an exercise, an alert, or a resource in a resource library, those are all being designed and curated as a tool for election officials and their toolbox. Success it's not going to be measured by how much we publish. It's going to be measured by whether or not those tools that we are providing genuinely help election officials strengthen their security posture in ways that fit their realities. If when we look back in December, officials can say the exchange gave us what we needed in a way we could actually use, then we've done our job. That's the North Star guiding us through the rest of 2026.
Perfect. Thank you. And I know that we're all very excited to continue to support election officials in their sacred mission. And as we transition over to a couple of our partners, I do again want to thank the Election Security Exchange for the amazing briefing. We are honored to be joined today by three, again, amazing partners in the election security ecosystem. First of all is Tina Martin from the Committee of Safe and Secure Elections, Sarah Cutter from the American Council of Election Technology, and Carolina Lopez, Partnership for Large Election Jurisdictions. So we're going to move over to Tina here first. So with the mission of the Election Security Exchange to the reality on the ground, Tina, I know in the Committee for Safe and Secure Elections are frequently out doing tabletop exercises, doing some amazing work, doing threat briefings. I just sat at one a couple weeks ago over at JELLC. Can you kind of walk us through some of the physical security considerations that you're hearing from the field, and how you're here to support that? And the floor is yours for about 5 or 10 minutes. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Spencer. And I'm really excited about what you're all doing and to be able to partner with each and every one of you. And I've already met with your team to make sure I'm injecting you into a lot of our tabletop exercises and bringing your expertise to the table. And just really appreciate the fact that election officials are going to have this one space that they can go to, because it can be super overwhelming when there are a bunch of different organizations out there or groups, and they all have the name democracy in them somehow, and trying to find exactly what it is you're looking for. And the fact that you're all putting the work in and putting it all in one spot is really amazing. And I know the election community is going to be stronger because of it. So thank you again for all the efforts and all the years of experience that you brought to the table. Certainly spending a lot of time out with election officials. Like I mentioned to all of you, I literally just got in off a red-eye flight coming in from Clark County, doing lots of training out there. We are still obviously seeing this high number of election officials facing personal threats. A recent survey done by the Brennan Center last year showed that we're still seeing 30% of election officials saying they're being threatened, harassed, or abused. We're seeing a lot of that is in person at their counters, over the phone. So the personal threats have not subsided. We're seeing that to continue to be something, whether it's an actual threat to life or it's just a matter of intimidation. I've had election officials tell me that they've had individuals waiting for them at the end of the evening when their staff walks out the door. They record them as they're leaving, record them walking to their vehicles, their license plate numbers. That sometimes they're just hanging out in the lobby of their offices for long periods of time. We're seeing content creators. In the past, a lot of times they've been called First Amendment auditors, but content creators know that they make money off of getting clicks. So we're seeing this kind of onslaught of content creators, First Amendment auditors coming into offices and harassing staff and teams. It's been mentioned many times, the bomb threats. Right. We saw we can record specifically over 250 of them that occurred in 2024. That in and of itself produced a challenge. And we saw just recently in New Jersey, where in that one state, they had over 30 on their election day in 25. A big concern for us is exactly how fast AI might be able to duplicate bomb threats and send those out in mass scale, and causing even potential denial of service attacks, if you will, or strain on resources of how do you determine which threats, if there's several that come into one area, one county, one state, you only have so many bomb sniffing dogs, you only have so many law enforcement officers you can dedicate, how that could really impact the election system. Certainly looking at swatting is continuing of public officials of all kinds. We're seeing that as something that has not subsided at all. Doxing. And then a couple of things, that have been alarming for me. We saw a poll that was put out by a professor out of University of Chicago, Robert Pape, put it out at the end of 24, kind of doing this question how if, and really was focused on battleground states, of do you feel that sometimes violence is necessary if someone doesn't agree with your political opinion? And in battleground states, sometimes that number was 12, 13% of people felt that it was okay to resort to violence. We saw just recently a survey come out from Marist, and Marist saw on there where they asked a question where they felt, do you feel that violence might be necessary to get the country back on track? And an alarming 3 out of 10 people, so 30% of those surveyed, said that sometimes they felt like violence might be necessary to get the country back on track. And unfortunately, what we're seeing is this microscope that election officials and the processes are still under. And so what that's doing is that's putting that stress and that strain on them. certainly what we are here to do as the Committee for Safe and Secure Elections. We are all either current and former election officials or current and former law enforcement. We are there to help you build resources. We're there to help you collaborate. We're there to help you walk through training exercises so that we can go through all of these scenarios and say, hey, exactly what would we do in this type of a moment? We can't rest on what we did in 24. You might have feel like you were tabletopped out in 24, like I can't do another tabletop exercise, but guess what? The threats are still there. All the people who participated in that, you might have a whole different group of people. And so you have to keep practicing. We have to keep collaborating. We have to keep having these conversations, and we have to keep our eye on what are the emerging threats. And some of that is, as we're looking at it, one of the things we're looking at is how drones might be used to disrupt the election process, whether that's through intimidation of voters as they're waiting in line. We know that drones can also carry a lot of weight now. They've come a long way just since, even in the last 2 years. They can carry packages. Is that something that they might be carrying where they could carry some sort of a device, spray some sort of chemical, whatever that might be? It's our job to kind of think of what are like the worst things that could happen and how can we help you prepare for them in a matter of preparation and not paranoia. And so I think that preparation ahead of time is what made 24 so successful. We stand ready to help you in 26 to do the exact same thing so that whatever comes our way this election cycle, we've already talked about it, we've already prepared for it, and you already know what to do.
Thank you so much, Tina. And again, thank you for the amazing work that you do and the Committee on Safe and Secure Election does on the behalf of election officials to help support them. So one quick follow-up, the Election Security Exchange really focuses on providing high-level guidance and making it bite-sized for election officials so they can literally grab a really high bite and get on with their day. What's one specific physical security protocol that the Committee for Safe and Secure Elections would recommend that every official have on their one-page checklist for their poll workers right now?
Absolutely, bomb threat protocol. I mean, they should have a bomb threat checklist of exactly who would be the one to determine evacuation, what would be the circumstances that you would decide whether to evacuate or not. What happens to chain of command there? Is that the election official on site? Is that the chief election official? How does the owner of the facility play in this? Also, looking at things like determining the chain of custody. If you do determine evacuation is necessary, what happens to the ballots? What happens to the equipment? So there are a lot of things to think about here. Who are the people you call, and not just their office numbers, because if that comes in after 5 o'clock and you have a bomb threat that's called in right at the closing of the polls, you need to know who you're supposed to call and what cell phone number you can reach them at any hour of the day, right? So names, phone numbers, chain of custody, chain of command, and the whole process of how that would work. That checklist together right there is going to be critical that every single election precinct, every single count facility has that. They have it ready and they're going over it with their poll workers.
Outstanding. Thank you very much. So now we're going to switch from physical over to a little bit more technical. Sarah Cutter is from the American Council for Election Technology, and she is joining us. Can you talk about the risk to election technology in the 2026 cycle, and what should be top for election officials on their radar? You have a couple
Thank you,
minutes.
Spencer. First, I want to commend you and all the founding members of the Election Security Exchange for seeing a need and rising to the occasion. It's certainly no easy task to launch an organization, but especially in today's environment. So congratulations on the launch. I'm Sarah Cutter. I'm the Executive Director for the American Council for Election Technology, which is a trade association for the election technology community. I'm also an attorney by trade, though I want to disclaim and be clear up front that nothing I share today constitutes as legal advice. When we talk about technological risks in 2026, 2 trends should be on the top of your radar, and they've been the focus of many tabletop exercises. And that's external actors seeking unauthorized access and insiders exceeding or abusing their authority. So for the purposes today, the scope is limited to these external and insider actors seeking physical access to your systems and hardware. So first, those external actors are the people outside your office demanding access to your election system. So recent examples include Jeff Small, a political consultant in Colorado who contacted officials requesting voting machines and claiming to have been calling on behalf of the administration. The DOJ in Missouri requested 2 counties turn over their 2020 voting systems. And we've seen renewed commentary about deploying the National Guard to commandeer voting machines. So there are 3 things that I want you to remember if you're facing external pressure for access. Number 1, pause and verify. Let me confirm this through official channels is always appropriate. It's okay to slow things down. Legitimacy is patient. Legitimate officials, attorneys, and vendors will wait while you verify. If people requesting access don't accept your answer, please don't be afraid to be a little weird. Don't let your self-consciousness or your fear of upsetting someone stop you from verifying their request. Number 2, log the interaction. Put a signing clipboard at the front or provide a form for staff who are tasked with answering the calls. Have the person making the request fill it out while you're verifying credentials. And at a minimum, this should require name, the purpose of their visitor request, the date, and the contact information. Number 3, follow your chain of command. At a minimum, that's your supervisor and legal counsel. Don't let this person's urgency override your protocols. Second are the insider threats, who are people who already have legitimate access but exceed or abuse it. I may only need to say the names Tina and Stephanie for you to understand the scope of this issue. If you suspect insider threat activity, there are 2 things I want you to remember. Number 1, document observed behavior as it happens. We call this a contemporaneous memo in law. Specific statements, actions, and timeframes written down the day they happen can be very powerful evidence in court. So keep a notebook or type out individual documents. Number 2, engage legal counsel and HR, and do not confront before consulting counsel. At ACIT, we recently completed a 50-state survey examining statutory protections for election technology tampering. What we found is that coverage varies dramatically. Some states only have broad computer system protections. Others have equipment-specific laws, but some of them will have protection for the voter registration list, but not necessarily the system. Some may protect the paper poll book, but not the e-poll book. Some criminalize tampering with tabulators, but not necessarily election night reporting systems. And in some jurisdictions, even the attempt to gain unauthorized access is a crime, which means that that documentation I mentioned earlier matters for potential criminal proceedings. ACIT has published the statutory language, including links to the official laws and the penalty for violating these statutes at techforelections.vote/resources. And that'll give you a baseline understanding of where your state is situated, but you should have guidance on your specific circumstances. So here's my action item for you, is that you ask your jurisdictional attorney, so that's your municipal, county, or state attorney, for a briefing. I'm going to give you 7 questions to ask, and I'll repeat each before moving on in case you're taking notes. Number 1, what election technologies are covered by criminal tampering statutes in our jurisdiction? What election technologies are covered by criminal tampering statutes in our jurisdiction? Number 2, how are those technologies defined? How are those technologies defined? 3, does our statute protect just the data or the physical equipment? Does our statute protect just the data or also the physical equipment? 4, do these statutes cover all personnel in my office or only specific people? Do those statutes cover all personnel in my office or only specific people? 5, what are my rights to refuse outside access requests? What are my rights to refuse outside access requests? 6, what are my obligations when someone demands access, i.e., when must I comply? What are my obligations when someone demands access? And finally, is the attempt itself criminal or only successful tampering? Is the attempt itself criminal or only successful tampering? So every election official and administrator has a duty in this space, but you need to know those outward contours before someone is calling your office, standing in your foyer, or a temp who's asking for resources outside their job scope. If you find that your state is lacking in protection, legislatures are in session now. Work through your state clerks associations or Secretary of State's office to educate legislators and explain why this issue is so important. If you ever need anything from the election technology community, including a hug, please reach out to me at s.cutter, that's C-U-T-T-E-R, at techforelections.vote. As the vendor representative, and especially as an American, thank you. Thank you for holding the line, and we are here to support you.
Thank you so much, Sarah. So here at the Election Security Exchange, we really want to use, again, that bite, snack, meal concept to take down some very technical stuff, which a lot of times as technology vendors and technology professionals, we tend to do a lot of techno babble or technical speak. So how can election officials best use the Election Security Exchange's resource library to stay ahead of the risks that you described? And is there a specific technical red flag that they should be looking at in our products or our alerts as they would come out?
So yes, we are prone to jargon and technical terms, but as it pertains to the threats I identified today, I would say that your first things first, physical security fast wins. It's a guide on the Election Security Exchange's resource library. It guides in exactly what I was just talking about, where the physical security meets the technological security. And so I think that sections 1 on access control is really pertinent. So that sign-in clipboard that I mentioned, it's right there with the information to collect. Insider threats, I would look at section 4 on securing sensitive areas and the accountability buddy system to ensure integrity in those sensitive areas. And then section 5 of that guide is the 10-minute security audit. And, that's always just a good reminder. I would suggest, just putting that on your calendar to, set in advance and then always just remember to do that. So, and spectacular job on those resources as well. You really did do a great job on the plain language goal.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So we're going to switch over to our final special guest and panelist, Carolina Lopez. And, we talk quite a bit, again, we're talking about physical security and we're talking about the technical security, but we really need to talk about the most important part of the election process, which are the humans, the amazing people who are running elections. So with that being said, security really isn't just about locks and code. It's really, again, about those amazing humans. Carolina Lopez is here from the Partnership for Large Election Jurisdictions. Can you walk us through the trend you're seeing regarding the human side of election security and how your work is building a culture of resilience? So the floor is yours.
Hey, Carolina, human reporting for duty. One of the things that we see when we talk to election offices, and I'm going to not just say large election offices, but like whenever you get a room full of election officials, inevitably we start with like technology, systems, audits, controls, and somehow the conversation meanders to the human capacity. The shift is the shift in preparedness sometimes goes into like not just like how do we implement this thing, but how do we recognize that there's a problem, throughout. In many jurisdictions, I think we're seeing that we're strapped for time, strapped for budget, strapped for resources, right? Like too many projects, not enough time. And as people are operating under this like intense scrutiny, lots of observers, lots of media, people's attention span being like 2-3 seconds, right? And everybody thinks that they're an elections expert just because they voted for 5 minutes, right? It's really interesting that, when they're operating under intense scrutiny, increased threats, let's face it, rigid legal timelines. And that's not just like redistricting, that's like implementing new systems and new upgrades to systems. There's this constant public pressure. And when you sort of add in turnover, burnout, and or loss of institutional knowledge, sometimes cybersecurity threats are a little less sophisticated, or in addition to the sophisticated threats, and it comes from the human side of election security, right? Like, do we have the capacity? Do we have the support? Is somebody manning this, or is a seasonal who's day 2 who got this GIF that was really cute and just, let in a Trojan horse, or like whatever the modern day version of that is, right? So I think what we're seeing is it's not just having strong systems, but do we have people that can operate and navigate and use the alert system, the early indicators, to actually do something with it? Anyway, I could go on, but like I think that's like that really is something that I think we are dealing with as a community. And I'm incredibly thrilled that you guys are live and that there is a place where we can share, because I think collectively, our work, whether you're the fantastic Tino or the fantastic Sarah, or just like a kick-ass, election official or a subject matter expert, like when we're all at the same table, proverbially at a tabletop exercise or dealing with things live, we're trying to do like 3 things. One, we're trying to normalize the shared risk, right? I think there was a time where folks didn't want to like volunteer and say, hey, actually, I don't feel great about this thing. Does anybody else have the fix for this? We're seeing more and more sharing, right? When somebody raises their hand in the back of the room, maybe they're a new election official, maybe they've been trying to solve a thing and they're like, I just don't have that expertise in my county. Does anybody have things? I think the second thing is like once we are vulnerable with each other, it reduces isolation and it improves the ability to collectively identify a solution. Step 2, I think it's translating security into reality. Sounds a little wonky, but here's what I mean. We spend a lot of time talking to people that are way smarter than us because they know way more details because they've either lived it or their job is to sort of like sift through data to identify it. And I think when you can have somebody who is an expert in this and that can focus us and say, hey, we're not going to solve 1,000 problems today, but today we can, like sort of tackle this one thing and put it into practical solutions, easy 1, 2, 3 steps that you can take back to the office, you're more likely to check it off your list. I know when I get my honey-do list with 75 things, it sits there collecting dust. And when I get a honey-do list with 1 or 2 things, it's done by noon, right? And so that's sort of how we're having these discussions as a collective. And the third thing I think is moving away from the hero culture. I know we're all election heroes, and I'm not suggesting that any of us aren't or shouldn't, but I'm saying don't be a hero. If your security posture depends on a few exhausted experts that never take a day off, that is not resilience. That's you're just asking for danger. That's fragility, right? And so for the cybersecurity community, whenever I talk to them and whenever I talk to local election officials, I think the takeaway is that strong technical controls only work when you have people that know how to use them and they know how to disseminate information into bite stacked meals, so we can have actionable items. And I'm really excited that you guys are helping in all these different facets, but like collecting information and sort of training us how to neutralize these things one at a time makes me so excited and so pumped to be working with each and every one of you.
Thank you so much. And I really love Pledge's focus on the human element when it comes to elections. So for an election official who wants to bring their whole office into this culture that you're talking about, how does Pledge complement the training and resources that are available in the Election Security Exchange? And how do you kind of bring those two pieces together to really help protect and empower staff?
I think it's twofold. I joke that, from a cybersecurity perspective, Pledge works less on tools and more on operational reality, right? We help election officials sort of integrate this great best practice that exists into actionable workflows that they can pilot, in smaller elections, that they can, activate during extreme scrutiny, and that we are closing the feedback loop with subject matter experts to say, but how should we respond to this new threat, right? I can also say that when there is training, when they receive resources from your expanding resource library, right? Pledge complements this by focusing on how they can be implemented in an office, whether small, medium, or large, over time. I love my 3 points. So in this particular case, the first point is Pledge sort of helps support the training by integrating into the culture. What does that mean? We go to training one day, maybe a couple times a year. Culture is what happens in your office the other 364 days, right? And so how do you not just go to a training and say, wow, that Mike and that Spencer really had good ideas, and it just sits on your desk collecting dust, right? Like, how do we extract the key points, and how do we reinforce those norms and experiences by implementing into the webinars or the in-person gatherings that we'll have, right? So from training to actually implementing into culture. And to be fair, Pledge is not the only one doing this, right? Like, you're doing it every time you talk to Tina. You're doing it every time you talk to anyone on this particular call. I'm just saying we're part of like the ecosystem that is moving people from training to culture. I think the second point is from guidance to execution, right? We work with election officials to translate guidance into workflows that can actually survive real constraints. My favorite is when I used to hear folks say, we require all of our staff to take their coup plan, their 300-page coup plan home. And I'm like, yeah, okay, so the building's on fire and you really are expecting people to run, no, wait, I'm going to get 25%, body burn, but I must get that binder. Like, that's not practical, right? And also a 300 document is really difficult to navigate when you're in it, right? So how do we get people moving from guidance to execution? It's livable, easy workflows that can be executed multiple ways, that can be activated when you're short of people, short on time, or, the whole world is sort of in your office. And I think the last thing is moving from individual skill to organizational resilience, right? I really worry when I ask folks, and who do you contact in case of a fire? I call Andrea. And who do you call on this? I call Andrea. And who do you call? I call Andrea. I'm like, okay, well, Andrea hasn't been with us work for 5 years. So in practice, like, who would you call today, right? And just, again, instead of focusing on the individual person, we're focusing on the organization. How do you cross-train? How do you do succession planning? How do you reduce single points of failure? But also, how do you increase multiple points of early detection? Because if Spencer has to go to jury duty today, is he the only one that can protect us today? Like, if that's the case, my recommendation is you go have a conversation with your team. So in short, I think that Pledge helps leadership just build an environment of continual process improvement, just to incorporate realistic, supported, and sustainable goals. And I think all of you can agree that, on election day, activities can go sideways really quickly. So adaptability and resilience are like what's going to save you.
Amazing. Thank you so much. So I'm going to move over to my favorite part of any facilitated discussion, which is rapid fire questions. So we're going to give everyone the same question because we are short on time here. We do want to again respect everyone's time, bite, snack, and meal. And Tina, you're going to be first here in a second. But if the election official only has time for one bite today, you only have, and a bite is I can grab a snack, a handful of popcorn, pop it on my mouth as I'm going to my next thing. What would be one tiny, low-cost action, and this question is again going to be for Sarah and Carolina, that they can use to improve their posture before they leave the office today? Tina, floor is yours
Okay,
for 30 seconds.
not even just low cost. This is totally free. Go to safeelections.org, download our 5-step plan, the Meet, Share, Agree, Plan, Practice plan, and then also download your quick reference guide for your state that has all the election laws that are applicable in your state. And so you know what they are, you have them in your hand, give them to your staff, give them to your law enforcement. Totally free, can do it in just a matter of the 30 seconds that I'm going to spend telling you about it. And then give me a call or email me so we can get you a tabletop exercise scheduled.
Perfect. Thank you. And Sarah.
I would say create a verification before access card that you print out, laminate, and tape to any desks that has a phone. So it's going to have your official vendor contact numbers, and those are contact numbers from your contracts, not from people calling you. Your chain of command for access approval, your legal counsel's direct contact information. Sorry, I'm a lawyer. I'm just really plugging my people. And the reminder that legitimacy is patient, and that it's okay to slow things down.
All right, and Carolina.
Okay, this one's free. I want you, after you get off this call and you're in, the coffee break, I want you to ask, if one person on this team was suddenly out tomorrow, what would be the hardest thing to keep running? And I want you to, no notes. Like, I don't want legal pads. I don't want people to feel like they're being audited. I want you at the coffee break, just ask that question. And I think get permission for people to be, vulnerable, but also go update your COOP plan and make sure that you're not reaching out to the same person for everything because they win the lotto or, their house is, impacted during a certain thing. You're going to be out of luck on multiple fronts. And of course, go look at ESX. They have like all of our resources. We're going to continue adding more stuff. Share. If you hold it, you're only helping yourself. You're not helping the other 10,000 offices. And that's what I got.
I think it's
Perfect. Thank you very much. And all those things are practical, actionable, and fast, which is what we are about here at the Election Security Exchange. So Tina, Sarah, and Carolina, thank you so much for those briefings. They were amazing. And that's going to bring us to the end of our session today. First of all, I do want to sincerely thank not only our guest here, but also the rest of the Election Security Exchange who was on the call today with your actionable and very relevant insights. And again, the goal of the Election Security Exchange is to provide you with timely insights, a steady field presence, and practical nonpartisan tools that you need to do your jobs with confidence. And we know that time is your most valuable resource. So once maybe tomorrow morning when you're having your morning coffee and you're looking at an election line, or if you're going to need some afternoon coffee, please make sure you jump over to the Election Security Exchange website at securingelections.org, explore our resource library, sign up for our newsletter, and please get in contact with us if there's anything that we can help out with. Most importantly, thank you for the work that everyone here does every single day to keep our election secure. We look forward to seeing you in the field soon, and have a fantastic afternoon. Thank you.